This is Sheriff Franklin Hunt. Identify yourself right now, or I'll shoot you dead.
There's a situation.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted. You know who did this?
They don't have a name.
How many of them do you think there are?
It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them.
I'm riding out with Mr. O'Dwyer.
As will I. I've killed more Indians than everyone here put together.
Hi there, guys. So it's episode 8 for another Westerns for Life podcast episode. And today's Western, we are going to be talking about the 2015 Western horror movie Bone Tomahawk. And it's actually a directorial debut by American director S. Craig Zahler, and the movie stars Kurt Russell and Patrick Wilson.
The plot.
And the synopsis of the movie. Three locals from a small town called Bright Hope, they get abducted by kind of like a cannibal clan, and they go missing. And then a team of 4, they go on a hunt for these cannibals who have abducted the 3 local people from the town of Bright Hope. And it's basically a journey that these 4 go on to kind of rescue. It's like a rescue mission, but there's a lot of character building into the second half of the movie, which takes shape.
The characters.
The main actor, starring Kurt Russell, who plays Sheriff Franklin Hunt. I said that right.
You did?
Dan, what did you think of Kurt Russell's performance as Sheriff Franklin Hunt?
Well, initially when I found out about this film, Bone Tomahawk, it only had a German release. I couldn't wait to see it, and I was really surprised Kurt Russell was actually in this movie. Wasn't known here in the UK at all. First time I see this movie, I was not just blown away by his performance, but the film in general. I mean, Kurt Russell in general, I think when you talk about Hollywood legends, I think sometimes he's overlooked. I think he is absolutely phenomenal. I will say, as we get on to later, I do think he is slightly not upstage, but not the most interesting character in this film. But nevertheless, you can get Kurt Russell in your movie. Amazing, brilliant part. And yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, I freaking love Kurt Russell. I totally agree with you. He's so underrated as a main, sort of lead actor in Hollywood. Over the years he's always given us so many fantastic, solid performances. And yet, and everybody knows and loves Kurt Russell. And yet, when it comes time to name favorite actors, he's usually not on people's lists, which is a shame. But yeah, fine actor nonetheless. And I love in this movie that he sort of has the look that he has in Hateful Eight. I think they shot this back to back with Hateful Eight. I think that's why he carried the look through both of the movies. Yeah, I mean, I love Kurt Russell. I think he was passionate about this one. I think this one was in development for quite a few years. He was one of the first people attached. And it went through a few recastings with different characters and stuff, but I think he really stuck with it, and he really was passionate about doing this one. He really loved the script, from what I've read up. He delivers once again a magnificent performance in this one. I do agree that he sort of feels a little upstaged by different characters and stuff later on in the film. He doesn't really, throughout the entire film, feels like the main lead or anything, even though he is. Still, nonetheless, fantastic to see Kurt Russell. Love the guy and everything he's done. And it turns in yet another great performance in this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I did briefly just only say, I mean, Kurt Russell does play the main lead, the sheriff. And the three people who do get abducted is a doctor, a prisoner, and also one of his deputies. So he basically builds as a team of four people that go on this hunt himself, the main sheriff, another one of his aging deputies, the husband of the doctor's wife, played by Patrick Wilson, and also a kind of cocky gunfighter played by Matthew Fox. So the four of them, they go on this journey to rescue the three abducted locals. But Kurt Russell, I've enjoyed all his Western performances. Obviously, the two previous ones to this, Tombstone and The Hateful Eight, which are obviously more well known. Like Dan, he said that this movie did not really had a really somewhat of a limited release, and I didn't know anything about this movie. I think it was movies like this, kind of small budget movies, do often sort of get a shown on these festival kind of showings, and it was pretty well liked with positive reviews. So that it kind of got out there because it was a little bit different, because this is kind of like a Western horror movie. It kind of goes against the grain of a lot of Westerns. It's not a shoot 'em up. It's kind of a slow burn, and it's quite sort of horrific in the very last sort of third of the movie. But Kurt Russell, another great performance in this one. I agree with what Dan says. He's probably not the most interesting character in this movie, but to get Kurt Russell for a Western like this on a limited budget and only on 20 days shooting, it's
21
quite
days.
amazing. And you know, just to have his name and his star power for kind of a low budget Western adds weight to it, because it certainly makes people. I mean, as soon as I found out Kurt Russell was in a Western, a Western horror, I was kind of like, I've got to see this movie for sure. His character is a good character, but not. I wouldn't say it's one of his greatest characters that he's done in his career. I mean, he's always had. He's always played good roles and great roles, but this is kind of one of his. It's solid without being a great performance.
It's solid, but it's no Snake Plissken by any means.
No, you wouldn't put it in his top 10 characters from his movie career. And then obviously the second lead, played by Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, there he is right there.
Who plays Arthur O'Dwyer. And as soon as he finds out that his wife's being abducted, because she gets abducted actually at the prison, in the sheriff's office, when there's a prisoner there who's got a kind of like a bullet wound, and she gets abducted. And in hearing this, Arthur O'Dwyer, played by Patrick Wilson, he instantly wants to go on the hunt, despite having a leg injury, and he's supposed to be 12 weeks nursing this injury, which I think is kind of like an infection of some sort.
He has a nasty leg injury in this one,
Yeah, they don't really go to say how that sort of injury happened. But Dan, what did you think of Patrick Wilson in this movie?
So Patrick Wilson's performance as Arthur O'Dwyer, definitely the most intense, and definitely had the biggest labour load, with playing the part very convincingly, carrying off that leg injury with two splints either side of it. I mean, there's pretty much throughout that film you can feel his pain, not just physically but emotionally, trying to rescue his wife from, basically, as we get onto later, this tribe, this outcast tribe. But Patrick Wilson himself, my kind of like for him didn't really generate, because the first two movies I see from him was The Watchmen, which I found incredibly boring, and Hard Candy, which he plays a sex predator in. And it took me a long while to warm to Patrick Wilson, but as he's matured, his career's gone on, and with roles like this, for example, in The Conjuring, I think he is a really fine actor, yet not particularly the biggest star power. Hence why I think Kurt Russell's the star power and the main draw. But Patrick Wilson is very, very convincing and a very powerful performance. How about yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, I like him in this movie. Again, he's not one of my favorite actors. I mean, I've seen him in a handful of things. I think the first thing I saw him in was the 2010 film adaptation of The A-Team, where he was, I think, the main villain, or one of the main villains. But I've seen him in quite a number of stuff over the years. I think he was also in that Seth MacFarlane film, Many Ways to Die in the West. I think he was in that as well, if I remember that correctly. The thing I most remember him from is actually Angels in America, which is a 2004 HBO miniseries with an all-star cast like Pacino, Meryl Streep, Emma Thompson. He's a part of that cast, and he turns in a great performance. I would say that's my favorite performance of his. But in this one, he does a really solid job for sure. He almost feels towards the end for sure like he's almost like the main villain. I want to say main hero of the piece, the main guy that comes in. Not to spoil too much, but he sort of gets his hero moments, let's say, by the end. So he sort of feels more like the lead at times. And I think he carries it off really well in this one. I wasn't expecting it, but I ended up really, really liking his performance in this one. When I first saw him in the film, I was like, okay, I know this guy from, again, a couple of projects that I just mentioned. How is this going to play with him? But he actually really surprised me and really convinced me. I think he did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah, instantly. I mean, I remembered him. I mean, what sticks out in his career for me is the Conjuring movies, the first two movies, which I really do enjoy those movies, even though they are modern day horror movies, and I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies. And I enjoyed him in those two movies. Going into this one, as being in a Western, I wasn't too sure, especially as kind of what kind of looks like a limited part with the character and kind of like him being somewhat kind of handicapped as such. I was thinking, how long is he really going to be in this movie? But like Dan says, he has the biggest journey in this, in what he the struggles to find his abducted wife. So I enjoyed his story going into this. There were parts of the movie where I thought, oh, are we going to see him again, only for him to resurface? But he's for sure one of the two of my favourite characters in this movie, Patrick Wilson, and I thought he'd done a fantastic performance in this movie, as well as the next lead, who's part of the group, played by Matthew Fox, who plays the cocky gunfighter John Ruder. What did you think of him, Dan?
Yeah, Matthew Fox as John Bruder. Kind of a little similarities for if anyone's ever seen it. The movie Lawless with Tom Hardy. He plays a kind of similar role to Guy Pearce, a very vain, arrogant character. But Matthew Fox, another actor I didn't particularly enjoy until this film, because I hate the TV show Lost. I really do, and I just always associated him with that. And he has a slow build up to kind of his character until he gets involved, and you see really he's the most technical, gifted gunslinger, survivalman. I love kind of the scenes where they refer to his telescope as the German. That's a nice little touch. And it's not particularly the way I like to see a cowboy. I like a bit of a rough and ready look, but he's very slick. And it's another performance that made me kind of say, I'm going to give this actor another chance. And he has some very, very good scenes, and he's always one step ahead of the game. I mean, there's even scenes where you can tell he feels he's superior to everyone else because he's sleeping like 12 feet away when they're at camp at night, and he's just
Yeah.
a bit like Leon. If people have seen that, he sleeps, but he actually never sleeps. He's aware of everything around him. Matthew Fox in this is still not my favourite character, but a very good performance. And yourself, Jeff?
Good performance. I'm not too familiar with Matthew Fox, I gotta be honest. I've never seen Lost. I just quickly looked through his IMDb. He hasn't really done anything else that I've seen. So that is the only movie that I've really seen him in. But yeah, he did a good job, because at first he made me sort of dislike his character. So I mean, that's how he played it, because I was like, I don't like this guy. Get the character, that is. Yeah, so he played it well. I get what they were going for. I get that he was, really cocksure, slightly racist, maybe. Definitely slightly racist. Gunslinger, who sort of, thinks he's above everybody else and stuff. But yeah, when it came time to show what he could do, I mean, he definitely was proficient enough with firearm and with the what's it called, the rifle and stuff. So he definitely had skills, and he had enough to back up his his big mouth, so to speak. I wouldn't say he's my favorite character or favorite actor in the film, but yeah, he did a good job. I did end up liking him by his final few scenes, if you will. I was like, oh, I started to like this guy, Yeah, that's what I think of him.
For me, he's my second favourite character in this one. A bit like you, Jeff. I didn't really like him from the get-go. I had a bit of a dislike. Thought he was too slick and too pristine in his cream suit.
Yeah.
All these kind of little gadgets and stuff. But I kind of like the way that he was kind of, when they kind of formed the group to go out looking for this hidden cannibal clan, and there's like this Indian guy who's kind of given the direction where this clan exists, and he was kind of saying that he was the most sort of qualified gunfighter, because he's killed so many people, which turns out to be around about 130 people that he's killed, which is the figure that he says towards the end of the movie. Kind of had like a little bit of a Daniel Day-Lewis look.
Yeah, a little bit.
When I first saw him, and I thought he'd done a solid job. I did sort of check his Wikipedia, anything that I've seen from him, and the only thing that really stood out was kind of like an American political action thriller with Dennis Quaid, Vantage Point, that he'd done. It was the second main lead in that one, and I sort of thought to myself, well, how come he's not really his career's not really excelled? Because that was a fair few years ago. But I thought he had a good look, and he was a believable character. And I thought he was kind of one of the more standout performances. He was probably my second favourite character in this movie for me. And then the other member of the group is played by Richard Jenkins, which is kind of like Kurt Russell's aging deputy, who's known as Deputy Chicory, or just plain Jane, the old man, as Kurt Russell refers to him in quite a few of the scenes. So, Dan, what did you think of Richard Jenkins' performance as the deputy?
This was actually my favourite character in the film.
Okay.
Richard Jenkins. He's an actor who's definitely become more popular and got better roles as he's older. And initially, when he was in this, I recognised the name, and I instantly didn't particularly like the character and didn't think he's going to have a major role. But to see what he'd done in the film, you think he's got no, what's the word? No censorship to what he says. He just carries on
no
talking,
filter.
and there's a guy I work with at work like this. He just talks and talks and talks, doesn't care what he says. And I love the character. He's got a lot of morals, a lot of values,
Mm.
despite talking a lot of nonsense. There's a great little scene in it where he turns to Kurt Russell's character and says about he keeps getting his book wet while he's reading in the bath, and he can't
Mm.
figure out how to stop keeping it wet. But it's silly little things like that which a child would say to you. But then you realise how valuable Richard Jenkins is. I mean, a former medic in the war. He takes some abuse as well. Nearly gets
Mm.
scalped in the film.
Mm.
Um, I personally think every film I've seen with Richard Jenkins in, this is his best, most memorable performance. It's just kind of a shame this film didn't have a massive cinematic release,
Yeah.
because I think it deserves it. It's my favourite character, and he's someone I could watch so much more of. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I really loved him in this. Of the group, I think besides Kurt Russell, he was definitely my favorite for sure. Yeah, I've seen him in quite a number of things over the years. He's always been sort of a character actor. He's sort of, he's never been the main role or main lead or
Mm.
whatever. I've always seen him in a supporting role. Sea of Love with Pacino springs to mind, and The Witches of Eastwick. He's in that
Yeah,
one as
he's in
well.
that one.
Do remember him from those two films in particular. But in this one, yeah, he had a much bigger part than I've ever seen him play. Um, yeah, he did a fantastic job. He really came across likable. I really love that scene that you point out, Dan, where he goes on about the book in the bath. Like, how can you read the book in the bath without getting it wet? I just, for some reason, I can't help but getting it wet and stuff. And then Kurt Russell says, "Well, get one of them music stands, that they use for the yeah." And he says, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to get one of those as soon as we get back." Yeah, I really like that scene. I like this character, and he had a lot of nice moments throughout the
Mm.
film. The film, admittedly, at times can be really, really dark. So you need that sort of that levity in those situations that his character provides. You need a bit of a relief, and his character definitely provided that. So I really loved him. I think I would agree with you. This is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, roles that he has played in his career. From again the films that I've seen him in. He's absolutely terrific in this. So that's what I think of Richard Jenkins. How about yourself, Carlos?
He's an actor that I'd always know that he's been in something. Uh, the look I'm always familiar with. And it's only his name. I had to actually tap into his career to see what he's been in. And Jack Reacher was the first one that I remembered him. And as the character that he plays in this one, he's kind of like the overshadowed deputy, because if you can remember, Kurt Russell's character, he actually tells him not to come on this journey. So he feels that it's kind of like he wants to prove to Kurt Russell that he is a good and reliable deputy, because obviously one of the main deputies gets abducted, and so he's got a lot to prove by going on this kind of escape, this kind of mission to bring back the three abducted locals. I am sort of pretty curious because he's appeared in this series, the Jeffrey Dahmer TV series, and he's supposed to
Oh
have
yeah.
been awarded. Um, I it was like a best actor from a series award or supporting actor. So I'll be pretty curious to see this series into the serial killer of Jeffrey Dahmer. And I know Richard Jenkins, he came out of that, really with the critics really praised him. But I thought his performance was great in this one. I did like the kind of discussion that he had with John Ruder about married life, when
Yeah.
he kind of said getting married's for stupid people, sort of thing, and he kind
Yeah,
of
only idiots get married or something like that. Yeah,
only
yeah,
idiots get married. And then he
yeah.
sort of turned around and said to the gunfighter, well, maybe, you know, maybe you wasn't likable or that sort of fancy.
Yeah,
You
nobody
wasn't
ever fancied you
ever
or something
liked
like
you,
that.
sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that you had that kind of bit of banter, sort of thing. But obviously, who'd want to marry a gunfighter? But yeah, Richard Jenkins, I thought a credible performance in this one. So that makes the group of 4 men that go on this mission, and then we go to
Women of the West.
and kind of the main female lead is one of the abducted locals, which is actually the doctor, Samantha O'Dwyer, who gets abducted. Dan, what did you think of her performance, played by Lila Simmons?
Yeah, Lily Simmons.
Lily Simmons, or is it
Yeah,
Lily
Lily
Simmons or Lila?
Simmons.
Lily,
Yeah,
like yeah, I think
yeah.
Lily. Yeah,
Lily Simmons. So yeah, Lily Simmons, not someone I really knew anything about. A performance which I'm a bit conflicted with because, considering the situation, how terrifying it is, she stays very, very calm throughout. And
yeah, she does.
despite you look at her and think maybe she's just a strong woman, as we say in previous episodes. Women of the West were not generic, a strong character. But at the same time, I think even like if I was in that situation, I'd be absolutely petrified to see one of them.
Yeah,
So I'm a
yeah,
bit conflicted. I can't say it's a good performance, but it's just a bit too unique for me. It's kind of
mm,
I struggle a little bit in that situation how someone can stay that calm at all times.
yeah.
Yeah, I say I am conflicted. Not a bad job by any means, just interesting character writing. How about you, Jeff? Be interested to know what you two think.
Yeah, she. It is an interesting case. I mean, she definitely plays it well and stuff. I mean, the actress really does a great job. But yeah, the character itself, it's sort of she's a damsel in distress on paper because of course she's captured and stuff. She's being
Yeah.
held, but then she's also in that situation the badass. So is it really then a damsel in distress? Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's definitely an odd sort of situation. It's like they were like, oh crap, we just wrote ourselves into a corner because we just wrote the stereotypical damsel in distress thing. How can we solve this? We'll just make her badass and not have her flinch throughout the entire thing. Okay, we'll do that. So like how it sort of seems like they went for that. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, yeah, she definitely does a great job, playing the part. It is in a way, if you look at it that way, it is a strong female role. I'm thinking maybe character-wise, maybe why she can handle all the creepy shit that happens. Maybe because she's a doctor, she's used to seeing blood
I
and
was also
stuff.
going to say that. Yeah.
Maybe that's the only thing I can think of. But then again, I don't think she would ever have seen that much blood as we do in one scene. I'm sure we're going to mention that later on. Yeah, so yeah, I'm a little conflicted as well on. I mean, no disrespect or discredit to the actress. She did a great job on it. Yeah, just not too sure on how the character's written. It's a weird one to me. Overall, I would say I am positive about the character. But yeah, definitely, like Dan said, it's a bit of a weird one for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you put it best there. It's almost like a U-turn within the writing of not to kind of offend the general audience of
Yeah.
this is just a very, very, very generic damsel in
Yeah.
distress. Yeah, over to you, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, into what Jeff says, in defence, I could only really, that's what I was going to say, in defence of her not being petrified with the situation, maybe she has seen certain horrors as a doctor. But the scene that kind of got me is when they get to the cave, when she labelled them as idiots.
Yeah.
By trying to rescue, trying to rescue her, and the other two people. Obviously, one of them got killed by the time they got there. I just kind of thought that was a little bit of an odd sort of thing to say. But yeah, overall, she was okay. I mean, I actually preferred her performance before she got abducted. Nice
Yeah.
to look at, easy on the eye. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of a bit of a weird one in the scenes towards the last 20 minutes, the more horrific scenes and what she says, that kind of it just didn't. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of her. I think she'd been in the TV series Banshee, which was quite popular here in the UK. That's about all I've seen from her career.
I
Um,
actually think, Carlos, I actually think this role was originally supposed to be for Jennifer Carpenter. I
yeah,
think she
I
was
did see
originally going
that.
to do it, and by the time they were going to make the film, she wasn't
Yeah,
available anymore.
I
So
did say
yeah,
that.
it was
Yeah,
a
yeah,
recast. Yeah.
I did see that. But out of all the characters, I think there's one more probably notable character, which probably we've got to mention because he had a big sort of start to the movie and part of the storyline. Is David Arquette,
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
who who plays
Who's
one
there
of
in
the
the background
thieves.
with the legendary Sid Haig there? I should mention him as well. Great character actor
Yes,
as
Yeah.
well.
yeah, they play the
Yeah.
two sort of main thieves, which the story kind of gets more involved. I kind of liked his character, but Dan, what did you think of David Arquette in a kind of a small minor role as
Yeah,
Purvis?
definitely surprising because I always associate David Arquette with the big success of like the Scream
Hmm.
Scream.
movie,
Yeah. Yeah.
and your career sort of faded. But nevertheless, really good to see him in this, and he's a character you want to hate, and he's got a name to go with it in
Yeah,
Purvis. To me, it's a name that
Yeah.
I don't like this guy because of his name. But yeah, I think for kind of the amount of screen time they had, David Arquette as Purvis and Sid Hager's buddy, I thought they done a really good job together. Like you, Jeff, it is always great to see Sid Haig. What a fine actor. Yeah, David Arquette for the material he was given, very convincing. And I'm still surprised he took on such a small role, but he's certainly
Hmm.
done his career no harm. About you, Jeff?
Yeah. Again, these are characters that I love. I mean, this whole opening scene of the film, it's one of the best aspects to it for me. I just love the way it opens, especially with them two. I'm just gonna cover both of them for this one. But yeah, David Arquette, obviously, most known for Scream and stuff, and in those movies. So yeah, it was a little bit weird to see him in a small capacity in this film, a smaller role. But I guess maybe that works better with the limited budget. I mean, maybe they couldn't afford him for longer. I
Yeah,
think maybe some of these actors are like, okay, you can have me for a day, it's going to be cheaper and stuff. If you have me for a week, it's going to be longer.
yeah,
So I think it maybe was one of those things. I mean, Sid Haig is a character actor. He always appears in small roles anyway, most of the time. So
yeah,
I'm sure it was no problem getting Sid Haig. And yeah, I love seeing Sid Haig as well. I mean, he's always been such a reliable character actor. Going back to the '70s and the blaxploitation films that he was in, with a lot of them with Pam Grier, even appearing in multiple Tarantino films. I think he was in Jackie Brown. I think he was in Kill Bill Volume 2 as well. Always great to see Sid Haig, and I think this whole opening scene with the two of them is just fantastic. Great way to open the movie, and both actors, for the limited amount of time they're on screen, they really did a hell of a job, as
Mhm.
far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
yeah. It kind of looks like they might have just been hired for probably a couple of days' work because obviously, well, David Arquette's character Purvis, even though he does get captured, you do not see him uh, in the ending of the movie, or actually even in the cave.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was kind of an off-screen death, as
Yeah.
Samantha O'Dwyer says, which was a shame, really, because kind of wanted to see what happened to David Arquette's character anyway. But yeah, I did like the opening where they played the two kind of bumbling sort of thieves. That kind of they are the first. They are the first characters that kind of go over that burial ground where they come sort of amongst. Well, they get to see these cannibals, and obviously they didn't fare too well. I mean, it was comically done, but it was at the same time it was quite horrific in how Sid
Mhm.
Haig, spoiler alert, how he gets taken out. That just
Yeah.
literally surprised me, straight away, within the opening scene. So they are the main actors and actresses to Bone Tomahawk. So the next section will be the director.
Behind the camera.
So behind the camera, to the a director's debut by S. Craig Zala. Dan, what did you think of his first movie and some of the other movies that he's directed in his career?
Oh well, this was obviously the first film I watched from him, being his first film, and from each consecutive project, dragged across concrete and Brawl on Cell Block 99. I really look forward to both of them. I mean, massive, massive, bold statement. This film, gruesome, Bone Tomahawk, right from the opening. Literally, the opening. I think it's the opening shot. I mean, that's grim, along with the kind of sound of what David Arquette's character's doing. You both know what I mean, but straight away. I think this guy is a really fine director. I mean, I can't fault the three movies I just mentioned: Bone Tomahawk, Dragged Across Concrete, Brawl on Cell Block 99. Very violent, very well written, and all with a steady, slow burn pace with a brilliant payoff. He's not a director I've looked at up and coming projects, but I'm surprised that I've not seen, or we've not seen more from him in terms of movies of that level, which definitely have their fan base. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen too many of his films besides this one. The only other one that I can think of right away is Dragged Across Concrete, which I actually wasn't a massive fan of. That film just felt really too long for me, too much of a slow burn. I was really bored with that film all throughout, pretty much. So that was a bit of a misfire for me, that film. This one, however, of course, we're going to get to the final rating and stuff. This one, I have some issues with as well with the pacing, but overall, I think this was a much better film than Dragged Across Concrete in terms of pacing and stuff. This one definitely kept me hooked all throughout, and especially with the opening scene. Like I said, if a film has a fantastic opening scene, it just grips you right away. I mean, that's already for me 90% of the work
Yeah.
done. An opening scene is really, really key for me with movies. And this one has fantastic qualities. I really like his style in this one, his visual style. I like the shots in this one. So I think really, as a director, he does a fantastic job with this one. But from the one other film that I have seen, I didn't really like it. I mean, it's not like I can fault his, his visual style. I mean, the visual style was really good in Dragged Across Concrete. It was just the pacing that was off for me. So yeah, visually, I think he's a good director. I would say, and yeah, I compliment him on the job he did with this one. But yeah, I would really have to check out some of the other films he did to really form a more sort of concise opinion on his career. But yeah, on the two films that I have seen, one I really liked, this one, and the other one, not so much.
I think the sad thing about those three movies, the three movies that he has directed, none of them have been a box office hit, even though Bone Tomahawk was well liked in the reviews, and he's not a director who hasn't really made a profit. That's why his projects hasn't really built up. He's not made loads and loads of movies. I think he's in the process of doing another movie. I did check, but I kind of got to give respect to him for the budget that he had and the tight schedule. Obviously, 20 days to shoot this movie. Originally, I did read up that they wanted to film some of the scenes in Romania and in New Mexico. I think the whole movie was filmed in California. Obviously, if you're going to go out of the US, then the budget's going to go through the roof a little bit. I think it was going to be built up around about the $10 million dollar mark. So with that, it's a tight schedule. It's a tight cast. I mean, for the cast that he's got for this movie, I think it's amazing that he's done that to get someone like Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson for a movie like this. It's well written. The dialogue's good. I never had a problem with the pacing because I think the first half of the movie is kind of building the characters that we're supposed to care about in regards to what happens to them in their mission. You know, will they be coming back or not? Rather than just kind of speed that process up, and they kind of you get to the kind of duel where they get to meet the cannibal sort of clan. So I thought it's well done. Just a shame it wasn't a big budget movie, because I think it's a really, really good. It's a brave movie as well, doing a horror, a Western horror, I should say. I mean, you know, Western fans might kind of turn their nose up at it and say, well, you know, it's not a shoot 'em up, but it's kind of a character build first half, but then the last half is quite sort of violent, gritty, and it's quite horrific. Some of the scenes which we'll probably go into, which will go into some of our favourite scenes of the movie.
Favorite scenes.
Dan.
I'm going to stick with one scene in particular. So for me, this has a lot of really enjoyable scenes, which I don't want to spoil for too many people. I don't have an issue with the pacing in this. What I will add to that section we just previously done is the £2 million budget. Actually, watching the extras on this disc, why they could push the boundaries was because there's no studio interference in the script. So I will add that. But favourite scenes, I think, is definitely Patrick Wilson's. Is it Patrick? Yeah, I'm getting confused with Patrick Stewart. Then he popped into my head from Star Trek.
That's a different guy.
Yeah. Patrick Wilson as Arthur Dwyer, his kind of delayed pursuit on the cave where these cave dwellers are, and you hear the gunshots, and you've got the dialogue being exchanged between Kurt Russell, Richard Jenkins, and the wife, when he's saying your husband's a very persistent man, and you can hear them gunshots, and then he comes crawling through the cave, but then he's got to get out because he finds out there's more of them. I think it's absolutely brilliant climax to the end of the film, which really kind of solidifies, and you can feel that journey Patrick Wilson's been on in particular. That's the scene which will stand out for me. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I will probably agree with that scene, but I will pick another one. Yeah, I mentioned the opening scene. I do really love the opening scene, so that one gets a shout from me. I do love the way the film opens. And I know maybe Carlos will mention the other one I'm thinking of. I think it is the selling point of the film for many people. A very brutal scene. I'm gonna leave that one for Carlos. So I'm gonna go with the opening scene. Yeah, that's my shout for favorite scene. Great way to open a film.
I'm going to say two briefly. Obviously, the selling point, like Jeff says, there is a real horrific kind of head scalping scene, and parts get literally hacked with an axe. Something similar to Fire for you gore fans out there. And it is a great horrific scene. I mean, it kind of turns your stomach in, especially that head scalping scene. But actually, the scene that I really enjoyed, because it was a scene that I wasn't expecting, when the four of them eventually get to the cave where Kurt Russell, everything's slowed pace, where they're kind of tiptoeing. Are they going to hear any of the cannibals? Are they? How far are they?
Yeah.
And they all kind of crouch down, and the cave, the entrance to the cave is actually above them. And Kurt Russell says, "Do you see any activity?" And then all of a sudden,
And then
arrows get thrown, people get taken out, and that really shocked me because everything was like a gradual, slow build up. You can see that they were getting to the point where they know that it's getting down to the nitty gritty, that it's going to be life or death situations, and all of a sudden, in a quick flash.
It was a little bit of a jump scare moment, wasn't it? Because I think
Yeah,
Kurt Russell
yeah.
wasn't even finished with his sentence. It was sort of mid-sentence. He was,
That's what made it good. You could say it was a jump scare because I was kind of a bit sort of like that. Oh, okay, it's kicking off. So that scene was really well shot. And, in today's world of movies, you can always anticipate certain scenes. That scene I did not anticipate. So, credit for, and this is a first time director, how something different for a change, in a movie. So I would say that's probably my favourite scene. And watching it for the third time, I still was kind of thinking, when's that scene? And bang, it just comes at you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really fantastic scene. And probably my favourite scene with Matthew Fox, his character, without giving too many spoilers, in how he reacts to the cannibals, meeting up with the cannibals.
Yeah.
So, there are some of our favourite scenes to the movie. And we go to the movie roundup, good points and bad points.
The review roundup.
Dan?
I'll start with my only. It's not really about bad point, as we mentioned earlier. It was just the character writing for the so-called damsel in distress. It's the only part I struggle to kind of connect with, is the reaction, because believe me, for those who haven't seen it, when you see these cannibals, they're like nothing you've seen before. They're big guys, very intimidating, with tusks planted in them, and
real
grim,
savage looking.
Yeah, like things in their neck, which they do this like call to each other, which is really unsettling in itself. So that's why I struggle with that character, just to go a bit more in depth into it. But I absolutely love every single thing about this film, and it's a hard one for me to rate based on what we've rated before, but I'm going to rate it on something different, as it is a Western horror. As I said, it's a great directorial debut by the director. It really, really is. And watching it again for the third time, I loved it even more. And it's not often you can say that about a film. You love a film and you maintain that love, but for each time you watch something and love it even more, I really couldn't recommend this enough for something different, because as a Western fan like we are, I love it. And I think if you're not a Western fan, you're a horror fan, you've got a real good hybrid movie to enjoy. And stick with the pacing. For me, I like a slower build, the getting to know the characters and feel for them. But much like his other work, the director, when the climax happens, it happens very quick and maintains a very high level of violence, real unpleasantness, which, this is no exaggeration. The first time I watched this, it turned my stomach. I had to look away in 3 scenes. It really is that violence, hence there's no studio interference. So they can really push the boundaries, but it also has a knock-on effect of why we don't get big cinematic releases in some cases. I'm actually going to go and rate this film a 9, and it's not a comparison of like rating other films, because it's different to what we reviewed. I'm reviewing it and rating it as a Western horror. So for that kind of niche genre, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it really is a brilliant film. How about you, Jeff?
So yeah, good points is obviously the cast, and especially of course having Kurt Russell in there really lends, or adds, I should say, really adds has a lot of weight to it. I mean, it's like, oh my god, this is Kurt freaking Russell, Snake Plissken in this movie. it's immediately it's a draw to watch the film for sure if you see his name attached to it. At least it is for me anyway. I'm sure it is for many others as well. Yeah, so that's obviously a good point. I mean, like, we talked about the actors and stuff, and everybody in it does a really great, solid job. Great to see, great actors in bit parts, like we talked about, like Sid Haig and David Arquette, in a smaller role, and even another small role I did recognize in the piano player in the saloon. I forget his freaking name now.
Yeah.
James Tolkien, I think that's his name, the actor's name. He was in Back to the Future and countless of other stuff. I recognize him for sure. He's a recognizable character actor. So yeah, the good points is definitely the cast. I mean, even like down to those really small roles, they got recognizable faces in there. We talked about the direction. That's all top notch. I mean, I like a lot of the shots. The film looks great, has a great look to it. Yeah, especially considering it's again a first time director. I mean, making a movie like this, if this is your first time out, I mean, hats off. This is a really great job for a first time movie. Also for first time Western, and even more for a Western horror, which of course it's a bit of a blend between the genres. So those are my good points. I like everything behind it, and within the film, the actors I really like, and the story is a good one. The gore, I freaking love the gore, and it really comes unexpectedly by the end when you have that really massive, really gory scene. Dislikes, again, yeah, the pacing is a touch off for me. I mean, it's not as bad as with Dragged Across Concrete. That film was really I mean, that film was really mispaced for me. Like I said, this film, it felt a little bit slow in the first half during certain scenes, especially when they were before they went off on their travel. There were sort of some slow scenes for me, building up the relationship with the doctor and his wife and stuff like that. I was like, do we really need this much of it? But once we got on the journey, and especially once we hit the actual cannibal camp, man, does it kick off. And so yeah, slightly lower rating I'm going to give it because of the pacing in the first half. But other than that, again, pretty much everything is top notch. Music score, it's not really the most memorable score, but it does fit within the film. It really provides a good atmospheric touch to it and stuff. So my final rating, ultimately, going into it, I was thinking 6.5, but now I'm thinking maybe it's a little low. I mean, it's not a bad score, but I'm thinking I'm gonna up it right up until a solid 7 cowboy hats out of 10. I think that's a solid score for it. I would give it 7. Yeah.
Good points, bad points. Good points, like I say. I thought the director, first time movie, he done an outstanding job. He really did. Not only did he direct the movie, he wrote the movie. He's also a screenwriter.
Yeah, sure.
And he was also part of the score, the music, which actually has no music played till the 45th minute. I actually jotted it down because normally in a Western, you normally would have music in an opening scene. So there's very, very little music for a Western, for a change.
Yeah.
That's how bleak this movie is. Yeah, I mean, for him to get that cast in the movie, it certainly added to it. I think the dialogue, the screenplay was really, really good. I enjoyed that, the build-up of the characters. I don't like movies being rushed, and Westerns, for me, I've always got this thing about Westerns that they should be 2 hours plus, because things just don't happen, bang, 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 crash, wallop, just like that. But yeah, like I say, it's very nicely, it's nicely paced for me. And I thought on the limited budget, I thought he's done an outstanding job as Craig Zala. It's just a shame that his career in other movies hasn't excelled. It would be interesting to see him taking on a project with a budget. It really would. It might break the director because he's used to sort of doing movies sort of within a sort of small budget of around between $2 to $5 million. So maybe he's not that sort of a director. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I think this movie is a very, very good Western. I like the fact that it's quite sort of horrific, something different from a Western, rather than you've seen your normal gunfighters and sort of gun battles and sort of civil wars and sort of bounty hunt journeys. And it is a Western horror. I mean, if you don't like Westerns, definitely give Tomahawk a go. I was really hoping to give this one a rating of 7.5 because each time it's actually got better for me. But I just have one slight issue with a scene where cannibals, when they took their victims to the cave, they took it through kind of like they got these like neck muscles where they whistle, and when they caught some of the people, they threw down the rope from the cave, and the bodies got pulled up by the rope. Now, how did Patrick Wilson's character, one-legged, how did he get to the cave on that piece of rope? For the third time watching it, I sort of thought, who's pulled him up? Because it's quite a sort of height from ground to that kind of hole in the cave in the mountains. It's like, how did he get there, sort of thing. But nevertheless, it's still a very, very good and highly recommended Western. So I'm not going to try and rip it apart. So I'm going to have to drop it down a tad and give it a 7.2 cowboy hats for Bone Tomahawk, so to say.
In the defense of that, what I will say is he does walk hobbling to the cave. When you see him actually come in for the rescue, he's actually crawling. So that climbs took it out of him. That's the way I'm going to look at it.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Knackered him out, that is.
I tell you what, he must have arms like bloody Hulk Hogan, 24-inch pythons.
Get the biggest arms in the world.
But no, I mean, I shouldn't sort of like take full criticism and knocks on the movie. Yeah, like I say, 7.2. It's a really worthwhile Western horror movie. And so should we talk about some of the releases, which is pretty wide in picking up this movie. This is a UK release. It should be available in all countries, most countries in the world, I think. Germany.
Yeah, I've got
US.
a Dutch DVD. I actually was looking for a Blu-ray. We don't have a Blu-ray. We only have a DVD release. So if I'll have to get a Blu-ray, I'll have to import it. But this is the DVD from the Netherlands. Yeah,
pretty cheap over, isn't it, Dan? You can get it under £10.
Oh yeah, it's always knocking around the £7 mark.
I got this for €5 as well. This DVD. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the black case as well, which kind of gives it that real dark, grim look to the movie. So anything more to say, Dan, before you...
I will add to it. When I watched the special features again, I was a little underwhelmed because they're around 10 to 12 minutes, and I thought maybe one day with the cult following this has built up with, it will get a bit of a boutique treatment. I do really think it's a movie of that level with the cult audience. It deserves more. It's a very interesting story behind it, like you alluded to earlier, Jeff. Kind of there was cast members on board for this for years because they fell in love with the writing of the characters. That's what I would like, is a really nice release of this. I don't normally go all in on nice releases, but this one I really would.
Yeah, this one is region 3, I think. Yeah, this one's region 3.
Yeah.
Would you go along with that, Dan? The best Western since Unforgiven? I suppose you would.
I would.
I don't know, because as I say, I'll give it a 9, but based on it being different, a Western horror. But you've got Open Range to contend with. You've got
Django
Hostiles to contend with, Django. If you was to put that in the mix with them, it's as a
It's
straight
very
Western,
good.
it's not.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It's very good because it is kind of unique. It's something a little bit different, and it's something
Yeah,
that we're trying to do on this Western podcast. Not just talk about some of the classics, your straightforward Westerns. We are going to be talking. This one was. I chose this one because it's got a different Western theme to it, with it being quite
yeah,
violent, horrific, and graphic. We are going to be getting some more controversial Westerns, dramas, and comedies to kind of put them all in the mix rather than your standard kind of shoot 'em up classical Western. So we're going to try and sort of talk about all kinds of Westerns in the future.
Well, we do have something special planned for 10th episode, which we're not going to reveal yet, but that's going to be a big movie within the genre. So,
and also
for that one,
the odd sort of request from some of the viewers as well. So, Dan, are you going to take it to your next pick on our next episode?
yeah. So next one up is a personal favourite of mine. It is the 1966 Richard Brooks directed, I would say, fairly action-packed, Expendables-esque Western, The Professionals, with just an amazing cast of Lee Marvin, Jack Palance, Robert Ryan, Woody Strode, and the absolute gorgeous Claudia Cardinale. So I'm looking forward to a rewatch and discussing this one.
Yeah,
absolutely. So am I.
yeah.
Anything with
great.
Claudia in it. Ooh.
Yeah, great cast. So that's going to probably be a long episode discussing the actors and the actresses in that. Probably half an hour on Claudia Cardinale, I reckon.
Oh, some of them scenes, a bit of down blouse, lovely.
Yeah. Before we leave, just a quick reminder to everybody that the Western's Live podcast can be found everywhere you can find your podcasts. Platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Amazon Music. I think we're on there as well. Just type in Google search, whatever search engine you're going to use, Google, Yahoo, whatever. Type in Western's Live podcast. We will come up. Obviously, in video form will always be here on YouTube. If you're on the go, listen to us on Spotify. And with that, we'll bring it over to you, Carlos. You're the host for this particular movie. Let's have you sign us off.
So till the next episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Westerns for
life.
Thanks, everyone.
Ambush!
You seeing all this?
We didn't know what it was like. We'll make sure all this has value.